Welcome again to the Lily List podcast, where our goal is to be a handbook for the living. In episode 7, we present a very interesting conversation with Beth Talbert, an amazing human being with an amazing story who isn't done yet. We discuss her life from adoption, growing up on islands and moving to New Hampshire, landing in North Carolina, and navigating life while caring for a husband with early-onset Alzheimer's. We also touch on her present life and what she's looking forward to. This is one of the best conversations that we've had on Lily List, and I thank Beth sincerely for sharing her time and story with us. As always, visit lilylist.com for more information on the podcast and platform. You can also contact us from the website if you have questions or ideas for people or topics you'd like to hear or see on the platform. Welcome, Beth Talbert. Or is it Talbert?
Talbert.
Beth Talbert.
Yes.
I always get the names wrong.
That's okay.
Thank you for coming by. Appreciate your time. You've helped me multiple times with notary work, which is how we met.
Yes.
The last was the most important. We had the misfortune of inheriting a timeshare, not knowing anything about timeshares.
Right.
And we have relatives with kids that we thought would use it, and they never did. So for years and years, we just paid for it. And then when I said, hey, we don't need this anymore, I want to get rid of it, they make it less than simple to get rid of it.
Yes, they do.
So,
yes, they do.
So I appreciated your help with that one. I do like to just get a little background, if you don't mind. Kind of, where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? What experiences were sort of impactful and kind of drove you towards your adult life and some of the choices you made?
Okay. Well, I grew up, I was a pseudo army brat. My dad worked for Western Electric and worked for the defense system for the government. And where the army went, we usually went also. So I was born in Denver. But that was before I was adopted.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I was adopted when I was 2.5.
Okay.
By my parents. And my father that adopted me is the one who worked for Western Electric. So we went from El Paso, Texas to New Jersey to Kwajalein in the Marshall Islands. And my dad worked on Mech Island, so he flew to work every day.
Wow.
Yes, it was fun. I learned to swim in the Pacific Ocean, and, swimming lessons were part of school. It was lots of fun. And from there, we came to North Carolina, then went to North Dakota, where my dad worked on the safeguard system that got shut down 2 years after we moved. And from there, my dad was either going to have to go to Saudi Arabia for work, which he did not want to do, or he could choose to go into the manufacturing part of Western Electric, AT&T. So that's what he chose, and we ended up in New Hampshire. And up until that time, we had moved every 2.5 years, maybe 3, if we were lucky. So we went from North Dakota to New Hampshire, and I spent 10 years in New Hampshire.
Wow.
And I graduated high school, college, and got married there. But we decided the cost of living was too much, so we decided to move to North Carolina.
Cool.
My childhood best friend, whose dad worked for the same company, lived down here, so I thought, well, it'd be cool to move to North Carolina, and I've been here since 1986.
Wow.
So,
so I was born and spent my first 30 years of my life in Boston. So I know New Hampshire pretty well. What was that transition from island life to New Hampshire life like?
I didn't mind it.
Okay.
Because, snow.
Yeah.
But that, I was a kid then. My mom hated it.
Yeah.
She grew up in Oklahoma and Texas, and I think she wanted to go back there.
Yeah.
But the opportunity just never came up.
And we don't have to dive into this if you don't want to, but I had no, of course, I don't know you that well, so
Mhm.
I wouldn't have known, but I didn't know you were adopted. Have you ever sort of connected with your birth mother or?
Interestingly enough, I never connected to my parents, but I have 3 half-sisters and a half-brother.
Cool.
I've met all the sisters. Um, 2 of them live in Minnesota, and we went up there a few years ago and spent a week getting to know them and stuff and had a great time.
Awesome.
And they're on my father's side. So my biological father's family is from Minnesota. My biological mother's family was from Colorado. Apparently she was very promiscuous, and there may be more half siblings out there. We don't know. But I have a half sister who lives in Camden, North Carolina,
Wow.
and I see her quite often. We've gotten along very well, and yeah, we spend time at each other's houses and stuff,
That's
and
great.
it's lots of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. What was, so how did you find out about the half sisters?
I think I had posted on like adoption.com
Okay.
way back in the early days of message boards and stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
And somebody happened to see my half sister in Minnesota happened to see it. No, it was the North Carolina half sister. The half sister in Minnesota was doing a project when she was a kid about families.
Yeah.
And she had asked her father about if he had ever been married before, and that's how they learned about that.
Awesome. That's great. You mentioned getting married. We got to that point.
My first husband was the father of my children.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So
yeah.
that was in New Hampshire?
That was in New Hampshire. And yeah, we moved down here and it didn't last.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
And how many kids did you have with them?
2 boys.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what
And
are they up to?
they are grown. They live here in town, and
Great.
they each have 3 kids of their own, one of whom lives with us.
Okay.
Our oldest granddaughter.
Why don't we take me through, what we had discussed before with,
Okay.
I don't remember the actual disease that they ended up with, but we don't have to dive right into that state. How did you meet this husband and what
Okay.
was the marriage like? And
All right. His name was Harvey. I met him on a bowling league that
nice.
we were on separate teams, separate leagues at the first part of it. But we bowled next to each other. And then our little league was, it was just so small, so we joined with them. And it was mostly, I think at that time, was a lot of people who worked at Lorillard.
Okay.
So I guess they just kept absorbing people. Harvey worked for Time Warner Cable, had worked his way up through the company, starting with installing, and then he started drafting where cable would go in neighborhoods and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what he did, and he had a pretty good career there. And after a while, we just started hanging out and dating, and we got married in 1999.
Okay.
And it was a good marriage.
Yeah.
We never fought, never had disagreements or anything. My boys loved him. He had 2 grown daughters and 2 grandsons. And he eventually ended up with 4 grandsons because 2 more were born while we were married.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were married probably 2 years. Well, actually, he lost his job at Time Warner the year we got married. And we almost did not get married because of it.
Okay.
But we worked it through. But actually that year things started falling apart.
Yeah.
He was complaining about, his memory just didn't seem to be that good. And he was concerned about it.
How old was he at this point?
He was 59 when he died in 2009. So he was 49.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, when we went ahead and got married. He lost his job in January. We got married in February. We had it all planned and everything. Um, I was working in doctor's offices and, was able. He got unemployment, so we were able to make it through.
Mm-hmm.
It just when it started, it just snowballed.
Yeah.
We eventually got him to our family doctor referred him to a neurologist, who started him on medication, Aricept at that time, I think. It just
It progresses. Yeah.
it progressed.
Yeah.
It did. He went through a few jobs that just didn't work out for him. One was sales, and he wasn't a salesman.
Yeah.
He was charming, but he was not a salesman. Had to remember too much stuff.
Yeah.
Eventually, he got a job at an apartment complex, just going around picking up trash and cleaning out apartments, and he did well with that.
Yeah.
It's just, walk around and just pick up trash.
Yeah.
And he seemed to enjoy it. I worked close enough. We used to have lunch every day. This apartment complex had ducks and geese,
Yeah.
and we'd sit by the pond and eat our lunch. So
I know the medical system a little bit, and I know how difficult it can be to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
So from when he started kind of complaining or showing signs to where he was getting some help,
Mm-hmm.
and then as it progressed, needing more help, what was that experience like to go through, I don't know, insurance or medical or trying to get financial help?
Yeah, I carried the insurance. So we didn't have much of a problem with that. What we had was, because he was young, doctors didn't want to think about dementia or Alzheimer's. They would call it dementia of the Alzheimer's variety.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd get progressively worse and argumentative, and he would leave the house. He would get mad at me for whatever reason, which was usually nothing, but to him it was huge,
Yep.
whatever it was. And he would leave the house, and I would have to follow him.
Yeah.
Just to make sure he was okay. And sometimes he would leave the house in his underwear.
Yep.
I mean, it was just, it didn't matter the weather. If it was raining, he was out there. I have followed him for like 2 miles, trying to get him to come back home. And it's during this time that I'm telling my doctor, I can't win an argument with him. I can't reason with him. So my doctor puts me on medication.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, this won't make you, it'll make it so you don't feel like you have to win. And he's right. I mean, yeah, it's like at that point, it's like, okay, just let it go.
Yeah.
Follow him, and he'll eventually circle around to come back home.
Just kind of make everything, soften the edges enough so that it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yes.
That's, I don't know when that started, but seems how we kind of handle a lot of things in society these days.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've run into with, our parents is, I don't know if you ran into it. It sounds like, you were working, he was working for a time.
Mm-hmm.
He was young.
Yes.
And what we've run into is, memory care.
Mm-hmm.
So to put somebody into memory care starts around $7,000 a month.
Yeah, it's around 5,000.
So, but you can't get Medicaid unless you have something like, I don't know, it's less than $30,000 income.
Yeah.
And so what we have is parents with very little savings, but between Social Security and a house that they sold that they're still getting payments on, puts them over the amount to actually get Medicare or Medicaid. So they have Medicare, but Medicare won't cover that type of
No, it won't.
care. So is that something that you also ran into?
No, we did not. Because he was not old enough for Medicare, we made the decision he owned his house, was making payments, and the payments weren't that much, but we couldn't sell the house because it needed repairs.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't able to make the repairs. I couldn't afford to make the repairs. So we made the decision to let it be foreclosed on.
Mm-hmm.
We just stopped making payments.
Yep.
Because we tried even we'll buy your house for cash.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So we let it go back, and we found a house to rent in Brown Summit. And then during all of this time, he had a heart attack as we were in the process of moving.
Wow.
So we have Alzheimer's on top of this. So he ended up getting 4 stents in his heart and was put on cholesterol medicine, blood pressure medicine, the usual cardiac meds. So that was fine. We rented a house in Brown Summit. He was still working. At this point, he was working at Cone Hospital in environmental services, going around emptying trash cans and stuff, starting to have more issues. He would lose his lunch. I went by and saw it, found it in the cafeteria, just sitting where he left it, just things like that. And I worked at an office that was very close, so I could go and check on him. In 2004, so he had the heart attack. A year later at his follow-up, he was discovered to have kidney cancer.
Wow.
So we went through it. I mean, it was just, and all this time, my insurance is paying for everything. We didn't have to pay a whole lot, which, lucky. He recovered from that and went back to work. We stayed as active as we could, had friends. We'd go to the beach. We'd go to the beach with his sisters. Eventually, he lost his job at Cone Hospital. And in about 2004, we got a definitive diagnosis of Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Finally. So that was, it was by a lumbar puncture, and they tested for tau proteins, the beta amyloid. Finally, he started on another medicine for moderate to severe Alzheimer's. That was Namenda. And later that year, he lost his job at Cone Hospital because for whatever reason, he thought he needed to drive a truck somewhere and hit a doctor's wife's car.
That's it's going to go out.
So we decided that was it.
Yeah.
And we hadn't thought about disability until this time. So we applied for disability, Social Security.
Got it, yeah.
Went for the exam, and this was in late 2004. When the doctor talked to me about it, it broke my heart.
Yeah.
Because the test they did, continue a story with these pictures and draw a clock and all that. The doctor said to me, it's amazing that he has been able to function as long as he has.
Yeah.
That, and like I said, it broke my heart. I mean, I
think one of the things, some of the research I've looked at is, what it sounds like you guys were doing correctly, knowingly or unknowingly, was that social aspect.
Yes.
Continuing that social aspect seems to have a great impact on the outcomes.
Yeah, he had 2 sisters, and we spent a lot of time with both of them. We went to church. We had friends at church that would come and do things with us, and we'd go do things with them. So that helped a lot.
Yeah.
So he gets a disability, and I'm leaving him home by himself, thinking, surely he'll be okay. If I lock the door, and it wasn't. It just wasn't. but I didn't know what else to do. So I was able to get him to an adult daycare.
Yep.
And he did well with that for a while. But with him being in his early 50s at this point, he's still strong.
Yeah.
He would go into these rages, and he would hit someone, or he would grab something so hard that he would break it. I had gotten rid of glass things.
Yeah.
Because he would get into a rage and he would squeeze it so hard. I mean, his knuckles would be white. And I was afraid he would break something and hurt himself.
Yeah.
So, no glass. But while he was at home, there were just, I want to say, funny things that happened.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it should be right, but they were funny.
Yeah.
I came home one day and the gallon of milk was in the middle of the kitchen floor. Refrigerator door is open, and basically every cabinet in the kitchen was open. Like he was looking for something, couldn't find it, but just the milk in the middle of the floor and the fridge door open.
Well, yeah.
And another time I came home and he wasn't in the apartment. The sliding glass door at the back was open. The bathroom downstairs, we lived in a townhouse at the time. Bathroom downstairs looked like someone had slaughtered a small chicken in it. He'd had a nosebleed and had wandered out the back door and somehow found his way to the office. I remember, they had called me. They had called me from work and said, "Your husband's here in the office and he needs help." So we got him to the doctor. He hadn't got that all fixed up, had to be cauterized. It was a bad nosebleed. Yeah. But, and he was on blood thinners at the time, so it just would not stop.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just sometimes funny things.
Yeah. I think, it's one of the old cliche, right? If you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So how did it, I don't want to say, the end, but playing out, I'm assuming at some point he went to full-time care, or did he stay?
He did. Yeah. He did. He got, the week of the 4th of July, I could not get any time off except for the day of. I remember the 4th was on Wednesday, and my coworker was off the entire week. I took him to the adult daycare on Monday. Was it Monday? Yeah, it was Monday. He decided to go into a rage and he attacked one of the other participants. So they said he wasn't welcome back anymore.
Yeah.
So here I am. It's the middle of the day on Monday. I call the doctor's office, his neurologist. I said, "I don't know what to do. I can't leave him home. I have to go to work." My boss is like, "Well, we can set you up at home and you can work from home so you can take care of him."
Yeah, good luck.
Right. Yeah, and it's like, I appreciate the offer, but I don't think that'll work.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it because I didn't know what to do. I called the family doctor. I said, "I don't know what to do. I guess I have to get him in a nursing home." So I'm calling Cone Health Nursing Home. I'm just calling nursing homes. I said, "I need to get my husband in. I don't know what to do." And nobody would help me.
Yeah.
He's 55 years old. Nobody is going to help me. He's not on Medicaid. He's on Social Security disability. And that's all we have.
Yeah.
Nobody will help me. And it was so frustrating. The secretary at the neurologist's office calls me back. And she says, "Don't tell anybody I told you this, but take him to the hospital. Take him to Wesley Long.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them what is going on and that you need to get him into care. They will help you. They will assign you a social worker and get you some help." So I took him to Wesley Long. I had gotten this FL form that I needed to fill out from the family doctor. I've got it all filled out. I take him to Wesley Long, tell them what's going on, and they say, okay, we'll have a seat out in the lobby, and we'll get to you as quick as we can. Now, it's not busy. There's just one other family there. It's the middle of the afternoon, but he won't sit down. Harvey will not sit down.
Yeah.
He is wandering around. His eyes are like just bugged out. His teeth are gritted. He's like this. I'm trying to get him to settle down. Let's watch TV. Let's do something. I can't get him to settle down. He goes into where the area is with the vending machines, and he starts punching the vending machine. I was like, okay, we need to stop this. I get between him and the vending machine, and he's very strong. He grabs the trash can. He drags that out into the main lobby, and he starts swinging it around and stuff. The security guard comes in and says, okay, let's get him back here. So they take him back there. They put him on a gurney in the hallway.
Yeah.
He is still not sitting, but they come and they try to get blood work. They get his blood pressure. They want a urine sample. So I take him to the bathroom, and I'm trying to get a urine sample. He proceeds to rip the toilet paper holder off the wall.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, they decided they need to give him some Ativan to calm him down, just so they can do all of this. So they do that. They give him Ativan, and he naps for about an hour, and then he's up and at it again. So they get him up into a room, and they've got him a sitter, and they have asked me for permission to restrain him if we need to. Turns out he has a urinary tract infection, and he's having urinary retention.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a reason for the rage, but how was I supposed to know that?
Yeah, he can't communicate it.
He could not communicate it. So he spends like 3 days in the hospital. He's got someone sitting with him for 3 days, 24 hours a day. When he has been catheterized all this time. When they finally take the catheter out, he's still not going until all of a sudden he does.
Yeah.
And it's just all over the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, when you hear the phrase pissed like a racehorse, that's, here we are. They got him into a nursing home locally here. He lasted there about a week because they could not keep him contained, and he kept getting out the door. So he goes to another one, and he stayed at that one there was another one here in town. He stayed at that one for maybe 3 or 4 months, and he attacked his roommate. And at that point, they got the police involved.
Yeah. So
he had to go to Butner for about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this was just, and I'm still trying to work through all of this, but at least he's safe, I think, in a nursing home.
Yeah.
The second nursing home, they had him in a locked unit, and I went to see him every day, every other day, to eat dinner with him, and thank God I didn't have kids at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, he went to Butner, was there about 3 weeks. So I'm driving. It may have been more than 3 weeks. Oh, and yeah, this was 2007, I believe. And my mom's dying.
Wow.
So my mom has had stomach cancer for a year, and she's in the process of dying, and she died Labor Day that year. She died on Labor Day. And Harvey was still at Butner at this time. So I'm going between home and Durham for all of this. The last week Harvey was there, he fell in his room and fractured his skull. back here behind his ear.
Yeah.
So they take him to the hospital. He spent his last week in Durham at the hospital, and I was driving every night to be with him, knowing how he is.
Yeah.
But they had gotten him on medications to try and calm him down. So he was okay. So I was going to the hospital and then coming back home to work.
Yeah.
And that was when they moved him from the hospital. He finally got into a nursing home in High Point, and that's where he stayed for the last 2 years. So he was in the locked unit for the first year, and the second year they said he could go back into the regular part because he just was not mobile at this time.
Yeah.
And looking back on that, I mean, it was just amazing how fast from 2004 to 2009 that he declined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, you say how fast that is, but 5 years, it's not just his life, it was yours.
Yeah.
And so, all the things that you mentioned, just this relationship, the change in the relationship, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You both met, you're 50-ish, probably thinking about, hey, let's work for another 10 years and then we can consider retirement and what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And all of that changes very quickly. What was it like for you on a day-to-day basis mentally? And then B, how did you get up every day and do what you had to do to get through that for?
I was exhausted.
Yeah.
Mentally and physically. During this time, I developed Graves' disease.
Yep.
Which is a thyroid condition. My thyroid was just way too hyperactive. I was losing weight by the week. I think I probably lost 50 pounds without even trying.
Wow.
I was putting so many miles on my car, just driving back and forth from one place to the other, trying to handle Medicaid, the social workers, the disability, and paying bills at home. I mean, it was just, and going to work. I was working full time. It was just, the best part about working though was it was medical transcription. I could just kind of zone out. So, I didn't have to talk to people.
Yeah.
Which helped.
Yeah.
So, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I would get into bed when I finally got into my own bed at night and just, I don't even remember dreaming. If it wasn't for my dad and my brother and Harvey's sisters, I just don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
So.
Did you have at that time, were you active in church or any social groups or?
Church somewhat. It was, there were some days when I would come home and on the weekends, I would just take one day and just sleep the entire day.
Yeah.
And still, get up, eat, and go back to bed.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to church as much as I had been.
Yeah. Well, did you have any issues? I know we talked about you doing notary work and were there any issues sort of at the end with wills and things like that? It didn't sound like you had very much.
No, we didn't. And up until this point, I'd always worked in medical offices. So I wasn't even a notary at the time. I didn't get that till 2015.
Yeah.
I met my partner now while I was with Harvey. My son and his daughter were dating, and they ended up getting pregnant, having our granddaughter. His daughter was 18, my son was 20.
Okay.
And just kids.
Yeah.
And when our granddaughter was about 2, I decided, oh, this isn't working out for her, and I offered to take her.
Yeah.
And say, you all get your lives back together, and I'll take her, and I'll take care of her and get her on a schedule and everything, 'cause she wasn't on a schedule. But anyway, while I was dealing with Harvey and his dying in the nursing home, Durant and I started dating in 2008.
Okay.
'Cause I had no life
Yeah.
for several years.
Yeah.
And I was still young. I mean, I was 61 now. I can't even think how old I was then.
In your
But,
40s anyway.
yeah, I was in my 40s. But, I he was finally at a place where I did not have to watch over him
Mm-hmm.
all the time.
Yeah.
And I was, I knew where Harvey was going to end up inevitably. I mean, he was not going to get better.
Yeah.
And people have judged me for that. But I never abandoned my husband.
Yeah.
I mean, he always came first.
Yep.
And I always put myself second. But I did feel like I needed to have other companionship.
Yeah.
And it worked out. I mean,
there's always some people that judge
Yeah.
and
yeah,
I always say, don't give them that control over you. So,
exactly. They're not living my life.
Yep.
So, but I completely lost my train of thought.
No worries. There's been a lot that we've covered here.
Yeah.
So, okay. So one thing I wanted to ask was, out of that, given the experience you had, which went on, sounds like, I mean, this was more than 5 years.
It was almost our entire marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the takeaway? Is there something that you can share to anybody who hears this with regard to, are there things that you feel like you might have been able to do differently or ahead of time? Is there anything that, if people are seeing these sorts of things or going through them, that might be helpful for them?
Have a support system.
Mm-hmm.
I did find a support group that was run by a local physician's wife. She was going through all this with her mother.
Yep.
Find a support group. There are other people out there who are going through not the same thing, but similar.
Yeah.
Keep asking for help. I wasn't good about asking for help. And then when I would get overwhelmed, I would reach out and nobody was available to help me right then. So ask for help before you need it.
Yep.
Be persistent with your doctors, with insurance, with Medicaid if you need to. With Harvey being young, he was too young for Medicare and Social Security, so we didn't have that to fall back on.
Yeah.
I felt like I went to disability as a last resort.
Yeah.
And it's not fun to navigate that when you are stressed to the max.
Yeah.
So,
so I know I was down at your new partner, which
Mhm.
is what, 16 years or something, or how many years has it been? You said 2006. You guys.
2008 we started
2008. Okay.
dating. Yeah.
So yeah, 16 years.
Yeah.
And I've been down at the law office
Mhm.
in downtown Greensboro. How long was it before you felt like you finally kind of came out of that experience?
I spent a couple years second guessing myself
Mhm.
about a lot of things after Harvey died. I should have gone for disability sooner. I should have gone for better health care sooner. But when you do that and then you think, well, I should have made him quit smoking sooner, or I should have made him exercise more, or I shouldn't have dated, or I mean, you can do this till you're blue in the face.
Yeah.
It's not going to change what actually happened.
Yeah.
So I think when I got more involved with the grandkids, and when Harvey was finally gone, I mean, I had my older son was in Reno at the time. He was in the Navy. I did go out there to visit his family maybe twice when Harvey was in the nursing home, when he was still alive. But once he was gone, I felt like I was able to do more and not have to worry about someone else at this time.
Yeah.
So it's almost like my life started over.
And that gets me to kind of thinking about, so stories and legacy are really my focus here.
Mm-hmm.
So you've still got a good bit of life left to live, and I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
that you've got things you want to do and plans that you're working through and all of that sort of thing. But when you look back, you've had a highly eventful and interesting journey already.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're still young, but at 61, you're further along than otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Although maybe you'll live to 125, I don't know. But,
I'm hoping.
But when you think about legacy, and often people think about financial when they hear the word legacy, but to me, it's so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking about with regard to the story that you want to leave for the people that you care about? What are the lessons learned that you want to leave? How do you want to leave them? Are you capturing any of this in writing or audio or video so it can be left behind? Those types of things. Is that something you think about at all at this point?
It is. And I've tried journaling. I'm not good at it yet, but I'm hoping to be better. Facebook and Instagram have been helpful with that.
Yep.
Last year I did one of my bucket list items.
Cool.
Which was hiking the Inca Trail.
Okay. And
I went to Galapagos, and that was just like an adventure of a lifetime. And it's all journaled on my phone and on Facebook, and it was so much fun.
Given what you told me about your dog before we started, I'm sure you didn't bring him to Galapagos.
No, they wouldn't have allowed it. But it was. But I wanted to bring home a sea lion. But that was interesting. I've gotten more into health.
Yeah.
Being healthy. Because there's always new research and stuff, and I'm taking my health more seriously.
Yep.
And because I want to be there. I mean, my grandson and I in a couple of weeks we're going to do a half marathon together.
Oh, wow. Out
at Lake Tahoe. So
wow. Yeah.
I'm trying. He graduates from high school, and
right.
We're going out there. It's going to be a blast. But I'm trying to fit in everything I can.
Yeah.
So maybe it's don't stop living.
Yeah.
Because when you stop living, you start dying.
And then the follow on to that,
mm-hmm.
which is probably a dumb follow on given your partner, but from the legal aspects, I'm sure at this point you've got to have any trusts and wills and things of that nature.
I am putting those in place. Okay. I've got an attorney. I've got so much I need to think about, but yeah, I should have had it done way before now.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Cool.
You can't hang on to yourself. You don't have to try not to hang on to yourself. It can't be done, and that is salvation. The most important thing for anyone to realize is that you and every person you see will soon be dead.